pentagrams in Washington, D.C. Is it put into the street layout on purpose, or is it just another conspiracy? And what about all the other countless pagan symbolism and crazy Roman sun worship that you can literally find everywhere if you look around you in D.C.? Better buckle up, Buttercup. We're going to find out right now. Is there any pagan sun worship symbologies and secret society connections to Washington, D.C. and the creation, the founding of the United States of America and of Washington, D.C.? Let's check it out. James, Alex, welcome back to the show. You guys went to Washington, D.C. recently for inauguration, not specifically to, promote or be against any particular political candidate, but to hand out some Christian literature, to hand out some books. And also, you were there and you found so much crazy stuff when you just walked around the Capitol building, crazy symbology. So what do you got for us?
Well, it was cold. It was really cold when we were up there, and we did a lot of walking. We walked miles and miles and miles. But one of the things that struck me was the symbology that you see enshrined in our nation's capital. And I thought I'd kind of delve into it a little bit. And first, I wanted to kind of start with the U.S. and then talk about how it kind of mimics ancient Rome. So really, Washington, D.C. it's the birthplace of this nation, right? I mean, it's where it all started. And so I thought it would be good to look at the layout. If you haven't been to Washington, D.C., a lot of people don't realize how all the different buildings are laid out. You have the U.S. Capitol at one end. You have this almost 2-mile long strip of park, basically flanked by museums on either side, going down to the Washington Monument, the World War II Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial. You have the White House up there at the top. And so you have a lot of different buildings all laid out very intentionally, right?
Because you had to think about that before people started putting buildings in here.
And you think about most cities today are just laid out in kind of a haphazard grid, right?
Right.
But that was not the case here. So before you can really talk about the National Mall, though, even before they laid out all the elaborate structure here that became, Washington, D.C. as we know it with the National Mall, you already had symbology talking about Rome, essentially. And a lot of people don't realize there was this guy named Francis Pope, and he was back in the 1600s. And which is kind of a funny name.
Right. Was he a pope?
No, but that was his name.
That's really odd.
It was really odd.
Address me as Pope, Mr. Pope.
But he owned about 400 acres, and it was land that was between Maryland and Virginia, which I've heard some people, talk about. Well, Maryland and Virginia, you literally have like the Virgin Mary right there.
Right. Yeah.
But there was also, he was named after certain queens and stuff. So those states were. But anyway, he also named a stream right there, the Tiber Creek, and he named the land Rome as well. So he was trying to have it be the next Rome.
So he was Catholic.
I don't know a lot about his history, and there's not like a ton of pictures or anything else out there about him. But
which is fascinating because they moved to this country to get away from the tight grip on that Rome had on us, right? But then they just recreated it.
Yeah.
But we know that the Jesuits were trying to get into the country as soon as possible, which the Jesuits are just a secret society run by the Vatican to turn people back to Rome. So
but then you have, a little bit later, you have the actual layout of Washington, D.C. And what's interesting is they had the land in a perfect square, but it was kind of on its end, so it's a diamond formation right there.
Yeah, I've seen a map of this before, and I'm sure you'll go into like the pentagram and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of symbology here. And so Thomas Jefferson is actually the one that came up with this kind of layout. And you actually still see that today. So you have George Washington, who was a very well-known Freemason, and he helped lay out Washington, D.C. with all these boundary stones. And there was about 40 of these boundary stones. They're still there today. Some of them are in the middle of streets. Some of them are in people's backyard, but you still have them, and they're protected there today. And so they set these stones in place in 1791, and they had this elaborate ceremony where they had a group of Freemasons that went to every single stone and kind of like commemorated it.
Mhm.
And it was all at the direction of George Washington.
Mhm.
And that laid out the boundary of Washington, D.C. So
Yeah.
Washington, D.C.'s layout was very intentional.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
And then, I watched, and I sent you this link for this program. It was on History Channel, because when somebody pointed to me that there's a pentagram symbol in Washington D.C., I was like, whatever. That's just another conspiracy. But yeah, on History Channel, they just pointed out. They pointed out that.
This one right here.
Yeah. Oh, that's a different one.
Well, they have.
That's
Set
the.
and compass.
Yeah, they have.
Interesting.
There's multiple symbols there.
Yeah.
So
all
they
throughout.
had I think they had triangles or squares or circles or something, and they pointed out that this was literally put in there intentionally. And what's interesting is that when the United States looked at Europe, it was the streets were all scrambled. It was there was no structure. So the US started doing these grid blocks, but DC doesn't have that because they intentionally tried to put shapes in there that were referenced to Freemasons, including this one and the pentagram and all that.
Well,
And,
you look at these diagonal streets right here.
yeah.
And it's like, why would you have a diagonal street? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
And
No.
even more fascinating that they weren't going up in the air very often.
No.
So it's like
this was all
the
drawn
only-
out.
The only way to see that would be from a high up vantage point.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're on the street.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting that they have this kind of intentionality.
Right. And I mean, you would never do that type structure I mean, it would be a waste of land.
Right.
I mean, you got like these intersecting diagonal lines. So going back to the National Mall, what's interesting is to kind of look at how they laid out the monuments over top of those diagonal lines. So if you go to the Capitol building, which is at the easternmost end of the National Mall, you have a compass right there in the ground, and the whole building. Now, there's kind of two fronts to it. On this side is considered the front, really, but then it also has another front which faces the other direction. But if you look, I mean, the actual front is this side.
Mm-hmm.
It's facing the east.
Mhm.
Okay, and then on the other end is where they have the presidential inauguration. Whenever they have that, so everything is facing east. And it's towards the rising sun.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it pretty clear too. They
yeah.
have the compass with the sun on there saying, hey, east is this way.
Right.
So you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is very common in Egyptian, Roman, and in Masonic architecture as well.
And in the Bible, the pagan gods, they were trying to worship toward the east. But was Jerusalem toward the west?
Well, they I think originally started putting the sanctuary facing the west. They wanted them to turn their back on the way that everybody else was facing.
Yes. Yep. So you can see the Capitol building here kind of from a bird's eye view, and you see the Washington Monument behind it. And notice all the buildings are facing this way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything faces towards the east, if that makes sense.
So even the buildings, well,
Well, you see some of them face in towards the park,
right
there. But I mean, you see the Lincoln Memorial and the U.S. Capitol. The fronts are facing this way towards the
Right.
east.
It's interesting that the White House would be in the north then,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
kind of similar to if you think about the Old Testament tabernacle where you had the table of showbread in the north, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the Bible talks about Lucifer trying to set up his throne in the sides of the north.
It's true. Yeah.
Are we going to go into Daniel 11? This is probably not to the show to do it.
So, you also have, do you notice the dome right here?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see all the different windows right there?
Mm-hmm.
And this is very, very reminiscent of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. And it was designed to let as much sun and, view of the heavens as possible in. It showed the sun or divine light.
Sun worship.
Who's on the top? The little figure.
The figurine up there, I do not remember off the top of my head.
But one thing I will say about that figurine, if you look at the spire there's actually bundles of arrows that are bound together with kind of like a fascia, very symbolic in ancient Rome of kind of the uniting of power around the business leaders and heads and so on. Ancient Rome was very much devolved into kind of a fascist government, and there's been some that have thought over time that, the United States is going to head that direction in how its government is made up.
So I just found it. The figurine on top of the United States Capitol is a Statue of Freedom. And the helmet actually is a military helmet with an eagle's head and feathers encircled by stars.
I'm sure there's no symbology there.
Yeah,
and then inside the Capitol, which, you just had the inauguration take place inside the rotunda, but you have a circular room. And again, you see this circular symbology everywhere. You look at the floor even. Everything is a circle.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a round room inside the rotunda. You notice the statues there?
Yeah, that's Batman, right? No. But there's black and white, which is really interesting to me, at least.
The Freemasons use black and white.
Masonic, they often portray things black and white.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And a ton of the founding fathers were Freemasons, like a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
Including George Washington, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, there's a ton. So, but then you look up at the ceiling, and it's beautiful. You have to admit it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But you see all these circles again, that circular symbology.
Yep.
All kind of coalescing to the top right there.
There's Uncle George.
Yep.
Psychologically, looking up at this, and you're seeing the founders of this country looking down on you. It's like they're in the heavens,
yes,
almost like immortalized, looking down on you, which is really kind of a subtle psychological trick to be like, oh, they're now enjoying heaven.
Wait. So that red little hat with the on the right. Do you see that? So it's the Phrygian cap.
Yes.
Yeah. It's used in Freemasonry. It's
it came out of the French Revolution
yes.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have George Washington here in the heavens, kind of front and center, and he's kind of ascended, right? He's like a solar deity.
Yeah.
You have the rays of golden light behind him. And so this was a representation of a Roman concept of apotheosis, and this is actually called the hypothesis of Washington. And you can look this up and read about it on Wikipedia and everything else. And he's sitting in the heavens in an exalted manner, and he has ascended and becoming a god, basically. And you see, he's sitting there in the heavens looking down. I think that's interesting. You know?
What does it say up there? Do you know the e pluribus?
E pluribus unum.
I'm always looking at words because it's like, somebody,
out of many one.
So e pluribus unum, out of many one.
Mm-hmm.
Like unity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The artist for this mural was actually Constantino Brumidi. And a little bit of interesting history. You can go to aoc.gov. And you can read a little bit about him direct from the government website. And he did several murals internally within the Capitol building. He worked, although extensively, with the Vatican, restoring frescoes for Pope Gregory XVI, painting the official portrait of Pope Pius IX. His last murals in Rome were in a small church dedicated in 1851. One of the things that I find interesting is Pope Pius IX, was one of the popes back in the 19th century who spoke so much against religious liberty.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
They're woke. They got a rainbow in there.
Yeah, they do. Yep, there's a rainbow in the sky. But you see all the little stars as well.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Is that Neptune, the one with the Triton?
The Triton, there's a bunch of different characters here, and there's like a whole page where you can read about like what each group represents. So, there's so much symbology here that you literally could spend days just looking at what each little thing represents. And you'll find that throughout Washington, D.C., like we're only scratching the surface of some of the deep symbology. So kind of moving past the Capitol building, the centerpiece of the National Mall is the Washington Monument right there in the center. And everything is kind of looking at that or looking east. And so, this was built, they started building it in 1848. And it's like 500 plus feet tall. And it's the tallest obelisk in the world.
Wow.
Okay. And you see how it's very much an obelisk. It's very well known to be an obelisk. So where do obelisks come from?
Egypt.
Yeah. Right. And why were obelisks in Egypt? What were they dedicated to?
Wasn't this
It was kind of a man.
No, isn't this a symbol to like either the female or the male body part or something?
Yeah, isn't
It's
it
a phallic symbol. Yeah, it's a phallic symbol, but it was also dedicated to the sun god Ra.
Yeah.
What is kind of the meaning of that?
Well, so they would have a temple in Egypt, and outside the temple, a lot of times you would find 2 obelisks, and the obelisks were dedicated to Ra. So it was very much a symbol of the male fertility of Ra, basically. And so, you have the largest one in the world is right in our capital. It's fascinating. And actually, the capstone right here, they capped it with aluminum. So that's a piece of solid aluminum that they put on top, and it had like an inscription of the names of who helped build it and that type thing.
I wonder if that's because the top of it is reflecting the sun.
Well, yeah, I think it was also because it was one of the most valuable metals back then. They didn't have the process of refining aluminum perfectly perfected like we do today, where it's so cheap and easy to come by. And so back then they had to find it like in the earth, and it was not as common. And so they put the most expensive thing they had. I mean, that would basically be like putting solid silver or platinum or something else up there today.
Nobody's going to climb it and steal it.
Well, no, yeah, that's true. It'd be very difficult to climb. So, it's an impressive structure. It's really big. If you've ever walked around it, you're instantly impressed with like, wow, that is huge. And, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, like, why? Why do we have an obelisk in our capital? You can even see it. This is standing at the Lincoln Memorial, kind of looking out, and you can see it reflected in the water, like as above, so below.
And the sun would then be behind it, right?
Yes. You have the rising sun coming up right there
dude.
as well.
Interesting.
But none of this was intentional, right?
Yeah, no. Somebody thought it was a good idea.
Right. So, if you look at it on Google Earth, does anything kind of stand out to you guys right there?
A lot of ovals, and they're crossing over each other.
Yeah, right. And so you have here the Vesica Piscis, which is translated fish bladder. And this is a very well-known geometric symbol. You think about the Freemasons, what does the G stand for? In the Freemasons, it stands for geometry.
Yeah, I was about to say geometry. Yeah.
Shapes.
Yeah, so it's all about shapes, right? So everything had a meaning to it.
Well, also the fish bladder reminds me of the Roman Catholic, because if we're all making connections to Rome, let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Like the
fish miter.
The miter that the Pope wears.
Oh yeah,
is literally coming back to Dagon, which was wearing
fish god,
it was a fish god. There were like fish heads on their or hats on their head.
Right. So, you have the Vesica Piscis in a lot of different symbology. I mean, there's tons of different there's tons of different things out there that show this kind of symbology. So it's all over the place. So what about we can't talk about Washington D.C. without talking about the White House, right?
Right.
I mean, that's like one of the most iconic buildings. But is there some symbolism in it? Are we going to see that represented inside? Well, you look inside the Oval Office, and what do you see right there? What's the most prominent thing?
Yeah, the carpet.
It's the presidential seal, right? And what do you see behind the eagle, kind of coming up?
Sunrise.
The sunrise.
And the same words that are written on the top
E
of
pluribus unum.
Yeah.
So, even the actual structure itself, the Oval Office is this kind of oval, right? Of course, it's in the name, the Oval Office.
Yeah.
And now this is an older presidential picture right here. This is from a number of years ago, but you can see the sun rays on the carpet. Now, sometimes they'll change out the carpet.
Yeah, the presidents pick their own carpets, but it comes from a collection that's owned by the White House. So they have to choose. They can't just say, I want just like go to Walmart and pick up a carpet. Like it has to come from its own collection. So they have this.
But you see the sun rays on the carpet behind, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then, you also have the ceiling. What's noticeable right there about that presidential seal again that you have on the ceiling? What do you guys see?
It's a bunch of suns.
Yeah. And the thing is some people would say, well, no, those could just represent like the stars of the Union, like that type thing. It's like, no, the stars of the Union are a 5-pointed star.
Yeah.
And so you have like an 8-pointed star or sun all the way around the presidential seal. The other thing that's interesting is even the layout of the landscaping. You see the giant oval or the giant circle right there.
Yeah.
So, everything has a meaning there.
Right.
Wow.
So, and this is the White House again, facing the Washington Monument. So, literally, our president's house is facing the tallest obelisk in the world.
Which is in honor of the sun god, which in pagan origins, the sun god was always a reference to Satan.
Right. So, then we can go down to the World War II Memorial, which is a really interesting place. Now, I'm in no way trying to, in any way denigrate the people that fell during World War II. I think that their memory is very important. So this is not a commentary on, the soldiers of World War II. But the actual memorial is interesting because, again, you see this ovoid structure that has these, you see all the water fountains right there that are kind of like starburst pattern of a solar depiction. And so this is, reflective of the grandeur and symmetry of Roman imperial design, very much so. And, you can see here, even in ancient Egypt, not every sun was perfectly round.
That's Ra that you referenced earlier.
Right. Yeah, so you have the kind of ovoid structure there as well.
With the snake.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you're standing in the World War II Memorial, you can see the different states are represented by different columns, and they have these circular laurel wreaths for each one, right? Which is a throwback to Rome as well.
Yeah, and also the laurel wreaths were used back then and today as a symbol of victory. You see it in the UN logo as well. But if you do a deep dive into that, laurel wreaths were also originally a reference to some pagan gods and origins and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So you have this. If I go back a little bit, you see this structure right here. There's eagles inside, and you can see those eagles right here. And you see how the sunlight comes through this hole in the top, and it filters down, and it's landing on these eagles, which, they were very much a solar animal in ancient Rome.
Really? That's interesting.
And in Greek mythology. So, they're associated with Jupiter, with Zeus, imperial dominion.
Zeus is also a Greek god that is the god of lightning, which Satan in the Bible is known to be falling from heaven like lightning.
Luke,
that connects Satan to lightning. And also eagles are heavily used in Freemasonry, which at the higher levels of Freemasonry, you worship Satan or Lucifer.
It's interesting, too, in Matthew 24 that Christ spoke about the eagles being gathered, where the bodies were, and the kind of in this depiction of what would happen at the end of time.
Yeah. So and they're all kind of clutching this laurel wreath right there again, which is the sun is coming through the top, hitting another circle, and it's going down. So you see solar symbology throughout, and then on the ground directly beneath it, you have this depiction right here, which again, you see the sun with the solar rays behind the person right there.
Who's the woman?
I think this is representative of victory because you have the sword that's broken.
Oh, right.
You see she's holding a broken half, or he or she is holding a broken half of a sword right there. So then you go on to the Lincoln Memorial, and boy, it's a lot of walking to get down this far.
Yeah.
Because, you're talking like over 2 miles from the U.S. Capitol down. When you're walking on the National Mall, you're impressed with the grandeur of it all. It seems like it's like otherworldly. It's just so big. You're like, wow, like this is way bigger than me, But you get down to the Lincoln Memorial, and what's that building remind you of?
The Parthenon with all the
right,
yeah,
very much so.
Yeah,
the Parthenon
in Nashville. It reminds me of that building in that park.
Yeah, the Parthenon in Nashville. Yep.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is they tell you what kind of building it is. So this is the Lincoln, statue right there. What does it say up there at the top?
In his temple.
In this
this temple.
In this temple right there, as in the hearts of the people for whom he saved, the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined. Okay. So you have, backing up a couple slides, you have a temple. Okay, you can call it the Lincoln Temple, right? It's not the Lincoln Memorial. They're telling you what it is. It's the Lincoln Temple, right?
Interesting.
Which, then you have these pictures right here that say quiet, respect, please. So you have a temple with, this dramatic lighting behind him and everything.
Is there lighting coming through the roof as well?
There's lighting that's
sunlight.
coming. There's lighting that comes through the roof, and then they also have lights behind that kind of throw up behind him when you're there at night. And we were there at night, actually, and it looked just like this. And it's very, very impressive looking. But why would you need quiet and respect? Well, it's because it's a temple.
Yeah.
It's a place of worship.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he's even sitting on a throne.
Right. So then, you on either side of him, on his left and right, over on the wall, you have two inscriptions. You have the Gettysburg Address on one side and the Second Inaugural Address on the other. And they're both of these, speeches basically are written in stone. Okay. And you have the eagles on either side, which, those eagles, take a look here. On the left, you have one of those eagles from the Lincoln Memorial. And obviously we know that this is a symbol of the United States. I mean, it's on the U.S. quarter, right? But this one up here at the top is a Roman imperial eagle from the 2nd century. So
Laurel wreath.
Again, you see the laurel wreath.
The ribbon.
Right. But then this is the Vatican, right? This is St. Peter's Basilica. And again, you have that eagle symbology. And so it's all mimicking.
Yeah, and it also has the two keys, which are part of the logo or the symbol of the Vatican, which represents unification of church and state.
Yes. Yep. So above these engravings on the wall, and this is not a great quality image, but it shows that you have the writing down below and then you have the mural up above. But let's look at those murals a little bit. You have these two murals right here, which on either side of the building, you have front and center. The main centerpiece is an angel with wings outstretched, right? What else do you notice about this photo?
It's a bunch of naked women.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nudity, right?
Yeah.
So, these were basically to commemorate the emancipation on the south wall. And it has the Gettysburg Address, and it talks about, this is representative of freedom and liberty and the angel of truth releasing slaves from bondage. And then on the north wall, you have, the Second Inaugural Address, and this mural themed about the theme of unity, the angel of truth, joining the hands of two figures representing the North and the South.
You see a lot of little children in here as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, kind of, if that was made during Roman times, that was kind of one of the beginning stages of them falling, right?
Oh, yeah. 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 So one of the things that's interesting is you have Lincoln, and on either side of him, the mural up above has angels with wings outstretched. And we already said it's a temple.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's sitting on a throne, right? In a temple. He's looking out, and he's flanked by angels on either side with wings outstretched. Can you think of anybody else, anyone else who has a throne with angels with wings outstretched?
Mercy seat.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the tabernacle.
Exactly. So in Exodus, you have these two cherubims of beaten gold that were with their wings outstretched over the top of the mercy seat. And it's like, why? Why do you have all this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
what are you trying to say?
What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
And this was for people who don't know about this passage in the Bible. It was the old tabernacle that eventually became the temple in Jerusalem, which again, a temple, a sanctuary, right? Where you had three compartments. You had the outer court, the holy place, and the most holy place. And if you study this in depth, this was all symbology references to the Messiah that was soon to come. And if you study even more in depth, if you look in Hebrews, it actually says that Jesus when he went to heaven, that he continued that work of basically the judgment, but also of wanting to cleanse us from our sins. So that's it. This is actually in the Bible, and it's really interesting to study. And we have a podcast episode that explains all of this. So I'll link in the description for that.
It's almost like they're immortalizing freedom.
Yes.
And it's like, that's the God.
Yes.
Freedom.
Yes.
Free to do whatever you want, free to think however you want.
Right. Yep. And so, you're left with looking at this Lincoln Memorial, and you see this figure inside. Which way is he facing again, though?
East.
So he's facing towards the rising sun, right? And, you see, this is kind of looking on the back side of the Lincoln Memorial, looking up the National Mall. And again, he's looking towards the obelisk, where you see the obelisk as above, so below, reflected in that reflecting pool directly in front. You see this giant circular shape all the way around,
Mhm.
right? And so the vantage point is always in a very specific direction.
Mhm.
So kind of pivoting then, we've looked at the National Mall. We've looked at how a lot of this is very reminiscent of Roman architecture. Roman architecture everywhere, right? So then what about switching over to Rome?
I think it's really fascinating. I don't know if most people put that together, but when you see it hand in hand with
Yes.
what we have and what they have,
Right.
it's a striking resemblance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, you have a very famous square here. This is St. Peter's Square. And what's fascinating about it is it's steeped in solar worship, solar, deity, sun worship symbology, basically. And again, we said not all sun imagery is perfectly round. So this is kind of a ovoid right here. But you have the largest sundial in the world right there in St. Peter's Square. And the main centerpiece is an obelisk. And so as the shadow of the obelisk falls, they even have these stones that are in the ground right here that tell you
what time it is.
Right. And also during which solstice it is as well. And so it's very specific. It's very well laid out to make sure that this is all about solar religion.
Yeah. I mean, it would have taken you a year to sit there and mark off all these things before you could even start building.
Very, very intentional, And so you also see the St. Peter's Basilica right here. And do you notice the dome at the top? It's very reminiscent of the U.S. Capitol. Yeah, it looks just like ours. It's a reflection of it, right? And do you notice there's actually, James, what do you see in there in the description? What does it say?
In anorum principis apostolus Bergensis Romanus Pontifex Maximus.
Pontifex Maximus. That's going to be important. So remember that title right there. That's on the very front of the building itself, right? But you have this dome again, and it again mimics a solar temple where you have the light that enters in high above to illuminate the power and wisdom down below, basically. And you can see that. You see the light kind of streaming in from those windows. And this was designed by Michelangelo. And it was also kind of taken from the Parthenon in Rome. And you have, in Rome, you had the solar temple, the sun god Sol Invictus was the original pagan deity that Rome worshipped, right? But here you have light streaming in and you have that kind of reminiscent solar symbology here.
You also see the I'm guessing they are saints who are depicted on the walls.
Yep.
They also have solar discs behind them, which they also put on Jesus and Mary.
Oh, exactly. Yep.
In the very top center thing, you have the 8 pointed stars all around there.
Yep. So if you look closer at the ceiling right there, you see those just like in the Oval Office, surrounded by 8 pointed stars. All around. Then kind of going on, you have this thing right here is called the Bernini Baldacchino right here.
What does that mean?
And it's basically the canopy or the altar where the Pope would stand beneath.
Wait, what? So you have the altar and then you at top of the altar where there's literally worship, there's a sun?
Well, you're right. Yeah, because you see the sunburst behind him, right? It's just this giant solar sunburst.
And
right
in
there.
the Bible, in the old sanctuary, what was happening at the altar? It was the lamb that was sacrificed that was a symbol of Jesus, the Messiah, to come. And here it's the opposite. It's the sun, which is a reference to Lucifer, to Satan.
Right. So when you look at the Pope as he's doing, having the Eucharist and everything else right there, you see the sun right behind him. So, it's very reminiscent with obelisk and everything else, the solar markers. It's reminiscent and it shows a continuation of imperial sun worship, but it's under a new Christian framework.
And there's a bunch of circles on the floor too.
Oh, yeah. Everything there is all about that. So, Sol Invictus was the invincible sun god, and it was of the late Roman Empire. This was their deity that they worshipped. And one of the things that's interesting about it is the title of the priest that was for Sol Invictus. The title was Sol Invictus Pontifex Maximus.
Oh boy.
Didn't we just hear that?
Right. So you saw that engraved like directly on the actual building.
Wow.
Right. And they even have it in their actual money right here. You see the Pontifex Maximus right there.
Yeah.
So that's like the Vatican coin right there.
That's even like the Twitter handle. It's like Pontifex.
Pontifex on Twitter. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep.
And is that they've got the 3-crowned top thing?
Yeah. Yeah. You have the triple crowned tiara right there.
Yep.
And James, what does the triple crown represent?
Oh, well, they have it representative of power in heaven, earth, and the underworld.
Yeah.
But
So universal power.
And if
basically.
you look at the 4th commandment of the 10 commandments, it says that God reigns the heavens and the earth and below the earth.
yeah.
Right.
And the
Seas.
Maltese cross.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's
Which-
so much symbology here.
The Maltese cross is also used by the Freemasons.
So in addition to that, you actually have the Eucharist right here, right?
I have a sun on there too. Wow.
And so literally, you see the sun rays
Mm-hmm.
in the one on the top left.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he holds up this white disc,
Mm-hmm. That's what's on the other side of it.
some of them,
Mhm.
some of them have that. And so he's holding up this white disc, and it's like it's the rising sun, right?
Mm.
And you have again the sunburst
Mhm.
right here
Mhm.
on these.
This is so sad because, they teach that Jesus literally becomes the flesh and literally becomes the wine, which
Right.
that's not what the Bible says. It's supposed to be a symbol of, eating Jesus' flesh, drinking Jesus' blood. It's a symbol of having Christ live inside of you, right? And recommitting your life to him. But they say, no, when I pray over this, Jesus literally comes down from heaven
Right.
and becomes the flesh and the blood. And so in this case, they're saying, well, this is his body right here, but actually we're referencing it to sun worship. Like Jesus now becomes a sun god. Like what? And you're
Yeah.
eating a sun god? Like, I don't get it.
Right. And that's the thing is it's very much a solar religion.
Mm-hmm.
You have sun symbology everywhere. You worship the sun, you eat the sun, you reverence the sun. Everything is about the sun.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go forward and, some of the other
Mhm.
wafers will actually have IHS right there.
Oh.
And the IHS logo is always, you have it accompanied with that sunburst again. And you can even see it in their iconography. But they say IHS is Isus Hominem Salvatore, if I'm saying that right. Other people have said, well, it could be IHS, Isis, Horus, and Set, which was, Egyptian in nature.
And those were sun gods as well, right? Or references to the sun or...
References to Egyptian deities. You can look up,
Kind of
each
like a trinity. If you
Yeah.
will.
Gotcha.
You can see over here an example, of the hat. Once again, that solar disc
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
So it was
And IHS is the official logo of the not the Freemasons, the Jesuits as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. So, what about the actual obelisk? We kind of bypassed that just a little bit. St. Peter's Square has, this huge obelisk that's presented right there. How did they get that there? Where does that come from? Did they just, build it themselves or what? Well, no, actually, it came from ancient Egypt.
Wow.
They literally brought it all the way over
They
from there.
transported it.
So originally it came back, I think it was around Caligula, around the reign of Caligula when it came over. So this was before the Vatican. This was, a long time ago. But it came to its current location. If you actually look up some of the details of how they moved it, there's accounts of how they moved it from Egypt and how the ship that they put it on was so big that it had a mast that 3 sailors couldn't reach around when they clasped hands together.
wow.
It was just a massive ship. Because you think about
That's
how many tons
stone.
that thing. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
stone. It's very, very heavy. And so this sat there for a while, but it wasn't right in St. Peter's Square. It was in Rome, but it wasn't in St. Peter's Square. And then Pope Sixtus decided he was all about obelisks. He loved obelisks, and so he wanted to have this thing moved to the special location right there as the solar sundial centerpiece. And so he proposed this big council to figure out how to do it and everything. And they ended up conducting this monumental movement of it, which required like 900 men and 75 horses, tons of pulleys and lengths of rope and everything else. And one thing that was interesting about it is they moved it into position and they wanted absolute silence.
Well, that's fascinating then, because
Yeah.
the temple was built not with one hammer,
Exactly.
the Israelite temple. I mean,
Exactly.
This is the thing that fascinates me about the devil. He doesn't go off in the universe and be like, I'm going to go do my own thing over here. He just literally copies God.
Yep.
That's all he can do.
Yep. And so they were setting this thing up, and they literally wanted like huge crowds gathered because they're like, is this thing going to break? And there was reports, that I've heard in the past, and I don't know how much you'll find this in literature, but there was reports that the main guy who helped move this into place, actually had like a group of horses standing by that if the thing broke, he could like run and jump on him and be like, okay, I'm going to get out of town real quick. Because, he didn't want to be responsible because they were probably going to kill him if he broke it. It was that important to them, right?
Wow.
So they told everybody to be quiet on pain of death.
Wow.
And so they're all sitting there quietly hoisting this thing. Well, then the ropes started fraying.
Oh.
And there was this one guy that saw that they were fraying and that they were going to break. And so he shouted out famously, he said, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, agua e corde, water on the ropes, water on the ropes. And so they realized the ropes were fraying. And so one of the ways you'd stop that is you'd take water and throw it on the ropes. And it prevented them from breaking. And so they successfully moved into place. And so then they didn't actually punish him. They were supposed to kill him if you spoke, but they're like, well, okay, he kind of saved us. So,
wow.
But it's fascinating to look at this Egyptian obelisk that's made its way to the seat of Christendom. But again, you look at how exactly they moved this, and you see the depictions they have. You see how many people they have there?
When man wants to do something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you see the inscription, I think or not the inscription, but the symbology there at the base, I think is interesting. There again, you see that eagle, and you see the lions. And what do you see above the lion's head?
Like a star.
Yeah. So again, you see that connection there between the U.S. As well. So, but Rome is filled with obelisks. It's not just that obelisk. There's this other one. This is a different obelisk. And this is outside of the Lateran Church. And this is another Egyptian obelisk.
Yeah, they're not even hiding the fact that it's Egyptian with all the hieroglyphs and stuff that are on there.
Yeah, and you think about it, this was very, very old obelisk. It's thousands and thousands of years old. Those are the original carvings right there from Egypt.
Wow.
I mean, this thing is massive. This is the largest obelisk in Rome, and one of the things that's interesting is this was made right around 1400 years before Christ, and so this was around during Thutmose III, which, if you do some research, Thutmose III, if you look at the years there, that was right during the Jewish Exodus, when the Israelites were leaving Egypt. And so Thutmose III was in reign when this thing was being built.
Wow.
When it was being erected.
Wow.
So anyway, you see, all the Egyptian hieroglyphs right there showing that this is from, ancient Egypt.
Yeah, and the owl on there is interesting. I just looked at what it means according to ancient Egypt. It says it represents death, sickness, and evil. It was also used as a determinative for the word husk, HSQ, which means to decapitate. They were often associated with death because they were nocturnal like bats. The owl was used to represent the goddess Amit, the devourer. So this is not something you really want to have in your,
pagan.
If you're supposed to be worshiping God who is good and who's love, why would you have that?
Right. Yep. So, you have the construction of this obelisk during Thutmose III and Thutmose IV is when this obelisk was, erected in ancient Egypt. And so if you study out who Thutmose III was, that was the pharaoh that was there during the Exodus that said, I will not let Israel go.
Wow.
And so, you know what?
Whoa.
So you literally have an obelisk from the guy that said, I will not let Israel go in Rome outside the Lateran Church.
Wow.
It's like, okay, what's the symbolism there?
Well, they have a Christian cross on the top of this thing,
They
right?
do. Yeah, they've tried to Christianize it, but it's like, okay, you're trying to Christianize a pagan Egyptian obelisk. But so you have this obelisk. I mean, you think about it, did the Israelites, did they ever go capture, like a pagan god like Dagon or something like that, and then set it up
Yeah.
It's like, no, they didn't. Because if they had taken that and put it right there, like they would not have done that, because I mean it's like completely pagan in origin.
Right.
It's like, why is modern Christianity trying to do that? Why is modern Christianity taking something that's completely pagan and setting it up and putting, oh, well, we can Christianize it. We'll just put a cross on top of it. It's fine.
Well, and also remember the story of the golden calf?
Yeah, they did do that.
They did do that.
They did do that.
But God
look
said,
what happened.
God said, nope, not happening.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the purpose?
Wow.
You see again the Washington Capitol and the reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could put either image on top. They're a reflection of each other. They both have an obelisk out front.
Mm-hmm.
They both have a lot of solar connection right there. So why is it important to show this similarity?
It's an image to that system.
Right. It is.
Revelation 13.
Exactly. So Revelation 13 talks about a beast power, right? And this is prophetic, right? It says, I stand on the sea and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon the horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So this is a well-known piece of scripture, and this has been studied by Christians for a couple thousand years now. And what's interesting is to look at the different interpretations of this. So if you have the reformers, all the Protestant reformers, they looked at Revelation 13, and what's fascinating is to see what was the one thing that all the reformers had. And you can go, and this is a long list.
Papacy.
Yep. Every one of them. Papacy. You look at Revelation 13, how did they interpret it? Papacy, 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 papacy.
Yeah.
So they all said, well, that first beast in Revelation 13 is the papacy. Okay. That was the one thing that everybody agreed upon. So then Revelation talks about a second beast. It talks about another beast coming up out of the earth with 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So the second beast that comes up causes everyone to worship the first beast, right? And so what are those 2 horns like a lamb? What do you think those represent?
2 powers?
Two different ways of wielding power, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, we got 2.
Yeah, we got 2. Church and state, right?
Yeah.
So you have the United States very closely mimicking the Vatican, very closely in a lot of different ways in that solar symbology. Is it too far of a stretch to say that the second beast that arose later was going to then make an image to the first beast?
And like a lamb, because this country was founded on wanting to have religious freedom.
Yes, very much so.
And I truly believe that God had his hand in the beginning of this country.
Right.
But you see how this a little slippery snake that got in there and started, meddling with everything that was getting set up.
Those 2 horns do not have crowns on them. We don't have a king.
Yeah. It's not a monarchy.
And we don't have a pope either.
Yeah. No, we don't. Yep. So, James, how do we identify that second beast? What are some of the things that talk about that?
It was actually interesting that in the beginning stages of American history, there were Protestants who recognized that America was that second beast of Revelation 13. Here's an example from Isaac Bacchus, and I actually obtained these images from the Library of Congress, where we have a copy of one of his works. And this particular one right here reads, "The year after America was first discovered, the Pope gave it to the crown of Spain, and though he soon after received a deadly wound by the sword of the Spirit," of course in 1798, "yet that deadly wound was healed, for the Protestant beast hath carried blood and slavery round the world in galleys and gallant ships as far as the first beast ever did. And the 2 beasts of Britain and Spain agreed last to fall to divide the lands and trade of the heathen." Now, obviously, when we're talking about Britain and Spain here, and these other concepts here, Protestants recognize, though, for Revelation 13, that the first beast was the papacy. But as you can see right here, the beast that makes an image, they recognized America as this Protestant beast. And he wasn't alone on this. We've got the next slide right here that we have John Bacon in 1803 stating, "May this prophetic vision refer more particularly to the clergy in general who will be on the stage sometime after the deadly wound is given to the head of the former beast, and who, unmindful of the pure doctrines and meek example of the Prince of Peace, will be so corrupt as to imitate the conduct of the former beast. Do not some of them who call themselves Protestants already begin to speak as the dragon, so court his favor to sympathize with the former beast?" So they were recognizing that the United States was, and specifically apostate Protestantism in the United States, was mimicking the former beast, Roman Catholicism, by entering into her same persecutory spirit in trying to head the direction of legislated morality or of coerced religion, which is ultimately false religion.
You think about the Vatican, though. I mean, the Vatican's been around for much longer than the United States, right? Probably about 1,700 years. And what's the highest form of flattery?
To mimic it.
To mimic, right? So if you have a big brother and then you have a little brother, the little brother's going to try and mimic everything that the big brother does, right?
Right.
So you have the United States, which in many ways, and some of these structures like the Washington Monument and stuff, those are not that old. I mean, like the Lincoln Memorial, it was dedicated in the 1900s. I mean, it was not, it's not that old, right? And you have all these structures that are showing that solar worship, that are right out of Rome. The Roman eagle, the sun everywhere in symbology, the obelisk, everything there. And it all shows flattery towards Rome.
And if they had this perspective back then,
right?
It's like did they knowingly go through with this?
It's like yeah. So then the question becomes, and this is kind of an open question then, is if the United States is that second beast, where are we headed?
I mean, when you start to see people discussing around the table, having to get back to God, and we need to write this into our laws. It's a strange thing when it says "Make America Pray Again." That's a very strong statement that I don't think a lot of people think about. If I made you pray,
right? If you're forced to do it,
if you're forced to do it, that's a different ballgame than if you're allowed the freedom to do it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a whole video on our channel that verse by verse by verse explains who the Antichrist is, which we believe, and I say it very lovingly and kindly toward our Catholic brothers and sisters, but we believe it is, biblically speaking, the Antichrist is the papacy, the Vatican.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's not the people, not the lay people, the people who are genuine Catholics. It's the system.
Right. Yes. There's nothing wrong with wanting morality back. I want it. I'm tired of the nonsense that's going on in our world right now. But the forcefulness of it is, I think, what the key thing that they're going to get to in our country.
Yeah.
And that's why we went back to Washington, D.C. That's why we went there. It's not to support a specific political candidate or party.
Right.
It was to show and talk about religious liberty and to talk about how we need to have separation of church and state in regards to coercing people towards a specific end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We also have a video that verse by verse explains the mark of the beast. In fact, as we are recording this, you guys had a show done with us about 666 and its meanings. So check that out on our channel as well. We have a video with just James talking about who the pilgrims believed the Antichrist was. And we have a whole video on explaining why the second beast is the United States, again, according to Bible prophecy, verse by verse. We don't ever want to go away from the scriptures. We don't ever want to put our own interpretation on it.
Right.
We want to go verse by verse. So, and you guys on your channel, you guys just started a channel and it's blowing up. You guys got a lot of views on it, and you guys, I'll call it Mark of the Beast updates. So you guys do Mark of the Beast updates, how we can see in our own political realm around the world, how we're getting closer and closer to this, which is why we keep talking about this, because this is so important.
And what I think is amazing is when you see this in the Bible,
right?
You know that Bible can be trusted. If it tells you that this is happening, and then we're watching it happen, playing out in our day, then we need to study the Bible.
Amen.
So, but if you want to follow us on our YouTube channels, you can. We're going to be talking more about that. We have 2 different YouTube channels. James has his, and I have mine. And we're coming out with new content all the time. So.
Yeah, link in the description for their channels. Make sure you check them out. Honestly, their channels are so important to keep an eye on because they really are showing you how prophecy is being fulfilled and how Christ is coming soon. So at the sign symbol at Biblical Hope and at Heritage and Hope Ministries.
Yep.
And also they have a website, heritageandhopeministries.com.
Yep.
So,
right. Well, I think it's interesting to see where we're going, and I think that we have to keep an eye on the times.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for blessing us with your amazing expertise in this area.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you guys so much for watching. Man, I feel you guys get on so much. I feel like we have a playlist that just says Alex and James.
It's needed for this time.
I know, and we got I think at least one more show that we recorded with. You were you on that one about the? I think it was just James.
Yeah, I was on the 666 one, but
yes.
Yeah.
So we got one more coming out with James soon, where we'll call it "I broke into the Antichrist library, and so can you." So make sure you check that out. Make sure you hit subscribe because you really want to make sure you don't miss out on any of these videos. Please hit subscribe to their channels as well. You will not be disappointed. Thank you for watching. If you want to support our channel, please go to lls.tv/give or patreon.com/littlelightstudios, or you can support us and share the gospel by hitting up our website, lightwear.shop. Scotty's wearing one of those right now, so you can shine your light for Jesus, be a talking point with your t-shirts, and support us and do the same thing by supporting us as well. So thank you so much. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Again, subscribe to these guys' channels, and we'll see you guys next time.
If you like this video, subscribe,
and hit the notification bell so you know when we launch new videos.
And drop a comment below, and we'll try to get back to you if we can. What?
Say that again.
No, I don't know what to say.